If you kept a decorated and lit Christmas tree in your living room all year round, before long, you would hardly even notice it was there, no matter how beautiful it was. If you celebrated Thanksgiving dinner, prepared and cooked the meal and set the table and had all the trimmings every fourth Thursday of the month, it wouldn't be long until that routine became precisely that, just something we did once a month. What we might call the happy problem of the Eucharist is that it is so accessible to us. It is an incredible gift that God has given to us, and it's available to us even more than once in a day. And with anything that we celebrate so frequently, anything that we use on such a regular basis, we can easily fall into the trap of taking it for granted and not recognizing the incredible significance of this event. Of course, Christmas, the birth of Jesus, is something worth continuous celebration, the reminder that God so loved the world that he sent his Son into it to be one with us, he who took on our flesh and blood. That is worth celebrating year-round. And God knows we have more than enough reasons to give thanks that we ought to celebrate Thanksgiving every month and even every day. And as a matter of fact, the word Eucharist itself means thanksgiving. It is our giving thanks to God who always rewards us with something greater than that for which we thank him. But we run the risk of overlooking how special, how precious, how sacred this gift is because of our familiarity, because of the frequency of its celebration and the frequency of our reception of this gift. And so the church sets aside this feast every year, shortly after we complete the whole Easter cycle, to recall the gift that was given on the night of the Lord's Last Supper, to recall the promise that Jesus made: as often as you do this in remembrance of me. You will eat my flesh and you will drink my blood. In several weeks during the summer, we will hear from the 6th chapter of John's Gospel, where we get a whole theological reflection on the bread of life and the significance of this great gift. Today's feast is given to us to pause and remember the great gift that was given to us. When we celebrate the institution of the Holy Eucharist on Holy Thursday night, it is in the context of our Passover, that is our Paschal Triduum, our Easter celebration. And so we celebrate this mystery rightly contained within the great mystery of Jesus laying down his life and taking it up again. Now we come back and pause and put it in slow motion, as it were, to reflect on just that component of our redemption and just that incredible gift that Jesus gives us, his very self. We can look at it physiologically, we can look at it scientifically, we can look at it psychologically and see that food is one of the most basic elements and our fundamental requirement, along with water, for our survival. And notice how God, in his infinite wisdom, uses both water and food in the sacramental system to remind us that there is more than just our physical existence, but our physical existence is to be seen in light of our spiritual existence. And so at the beginning of our life of discipleship, at the beginning of our Christian life, we're reborn in water, in baptism. And then as we become part of the body of Christ through baptism, we are continuously nourished with the very life-giving presence of Jesus, who gave his body and his blood to us as food for the journey, so that he can be intimately a part of us as he is drawing us into becoming members of his body, part of himself. Throughout his ministry, Jesus celebrated many meals. In fact, he was criticized for eating and drinking with sinners. He was criticized for the company he kept, but he recognized that those with whom we break bread are those who are important to us. And Jesus was extending the notion of who is a member of God's family and making that all the more inclusive. He broke bread with people of all walks of life. He broke down the barriers that existed in the society of his time, and he calls his followers to do the same thing. He multiplied loaves and fishes to feed the hungry masses when he had truly and already fed them with life-giving words that gave meaning and hope to their existence. The Lord is just as eager to feed us, spiritually and physically, as he was to feed the people who saw him in person at that time. He promised us to never leave us and never abandon us, and that his flesh and blood, real presence, would be with us until the end of time. And so he gave us a gift that requires faith, for sure, to believe that what meets our eye is more than bread and wine. What we ingest into our bodies is more than bread and wine. It is the living presence of the risen Christ, given for our salvation. When he says, "Take and eat this bread, for it is my body," he means the body that was tortured and sacrificed on the cross, and the body that rose victorious from the dead, still carrying the wounds of his suffering, a suffering that he willingly endured for us. When he says, "Drink this chalice of my blood," he is talking about the blood that was poured out for our salvation and that surpasses all the blood that we heard about in today's reading, sprinkled from bowls on altars, because those were the bloods of animals sacrificed, sacrifices that had to be repeated. Jesus made the ultimate sacrifice as he laid down his life and took it up again. And he invites us to share in the fruits of that sacrifice, even as we offer our own sacrifices and combine those to his at this very table at which we are nourished for the journey that is meant to lead us to everlasting life. We fortunately live at a time in the church's history when frequent reception of the Eucharist is the norm. And we take very seriously the words of Jesus, who takes and blesses and breaks and shares and says, "Take and eat, take and drink." We hear that invitation and we respond. But again, because of the frequency with which we do it, we may not fully appreciate what it is that we are sharing in. We may not fully appreciate the sacrifice that has been given to us because we hear it and we celebrate it so frequently. We may not fully prepare ourselves for this life-giving encounter with God. Some of you may remember a time when we had to fast from midnight the night before in order to receive the Eucharist. The result of that is there were less people going to communion, but perhaps more people who fully appreciated what it was that they were doing. We also enter into many discussions in our day and age about who should be admitted to the table of the Lord. And we hear sometimes a complaint from our separated brothers and sisters that we don't offer Eucharistic hospitality to all those who carry the name of Christian. Because we believe so strongly in this real presence, and because we say that we have to share in that belief and be in communion of mind and heart to approach the altar, we can defend that practice not as inconsistent with the words of Jesus, but as an expression of our desire for the unity of all people. And we have consistently said that the celebration of the Eucharist is meant to be the sign of unity, not the means to it. Still, we should be praying for the unity of all Christians and praying for the time when we all might share in this incredible belief of God's nearness to us, his physical presence given to us as food for our journey. Let's ask the Lord, as we celebrate this great feast of the gift of his precious body and blood, that we might fully understand the implications of what it is that we receive. That we might remember that more than meets the eye goes on at this celebration, and indeed of all the sacraments, is God takes very ordinary things and fills them with his extraordinary life and grace, given to us as an unmerited gift, given to us to sustain us on the journey to himself. We have the practice here of perpetual adoration in our chapel, perpetual adoration of Christ present in the Blessed Sacrament. In a sense, what we celebrate on this day is what we do in that chapel. We capture this one moment and we pause there and reflect on this incredible gift. And that prayer and devotion, that living, abiding in the presence of Christ is meant to strengthen our hunger to take and eat, to take and drink, and to receive Christ into ourselves. And then as we are nourished by the body and blood of Christ, we are to realize that Christ is striving to transform us and asks for our cooperation with his grace that we become more fully members of his body and conform our thoughts, our deeds, our actions, our way of being to that of Christ, and that we become the real presence that we celebrate and bring that gift to the world. As we take and eat, take and drink, may the Lord truly transform us and make us faithful and living members of his body, eager to share his undying love with the world.